Okay, so thank you for being here. We are here for our March Fort Prep 101 free webinar. So I'm happy to have you guys here. Thanks for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started and let you know a little bit about what I can do to help support you in your journey for the foundations of reading. This is our agenda for today. We're going to go ahead. I'll tell you a little bit about me, my experience, who I actually help. We'll talk about the Fort content overview, so you know what it is that you should be preparing for and studying with. We'll talk about each specific sub area competency, which I'll give you a few tips and tricks into some of those areas, what you really need to spend your time on, what you may be able to kind of skim through, that sort of thing. We'll talk about the Fort specifications for the exam itself and what all of the parameters look like. And then we'll talk about how my course, Fort Prep 101, can help support you if you are interested in having a little bit of a guide along this journey. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to, either drop those in the chat or come off mute. You can also always email me. So my email is readingdiva06@gmail.com, and I'm happy to answer those as well. So whatever works for you. My name is Emily Muccianti, and I am a reading specialist. I spent 27 years in the classroom. I've been in education over 34 years now. Recently retired and supporting teachers in their journey of passing these competency exams, which can be really, really challenging. I have been supporting our new teachers on this for about 8 or 9 years now, when my son's teacher came to me and could not pass the reading instruction competency exam in California. And so I tutored her, learned that this was all of the content I was teaching and working with every single day as a reading interventionist and a reading specialist, and then started hosting workshops inside of my classroom on the weekends in order to help teachers in my area to pass. And then when COVID happened and everything got shut down, I put everything online into the course, into a digital course, and it just kind of took off from there. So I have a pretty good root and foundation in California. I'm new to other states, but would love to get my name out there for all of those other states that are using this exam to prepare. The content between the Fort and the RICA is almost identical. The content doesn't change. It's just about some of the parameters for that exam. But in my career, I have taught everything from K through 12. I have been a mentor teacher, master teacher, a coach, you name it. I have worn the hat in education, and it has been a wonderful career. I'm excited to see you getting started in your career. It is not an easy career, as those of you know, if you're in the classroom right now, but it is a worthwhile career. It brought me a lot of joy. So I hope it does the same for you. So my course was created to support new teachers who are preparing in a number of different states for the Foundations of Reading exam. Now, this exam is currently required in 17 different states in various capacities, and you'll see it listed under a couple of different numbers. You might see it as the Fort 890 or the Fort 190, and those are virtually the same. There's just some coding that's happening, I think, more behind the scenes with the testing provider. So the content, though, is roughly is actually exactly the same. Now, I designed this course to make sure that it was for teachers who needed a really structured and supportive environment in order to learn the content, actually teach the content. I don't just tell you what you need to know. Today, I'm going to just talk about what you need to know, but inside of my course, I actually teach the content to you. And this is because if you've looked at any of the test prep books, or you've looked at any of the practice exams, they're not very visual. That they're not very interactive, and that can make this content really, really dry and really rough. And so what I did is change that for you so that the content was more easily digestible. So to help you with that. I'm also, so excited that this exam really does dive into the science of reading, but sometimes, again, that can be a little bit challenging for new teachers. There's a great deal of research that needs to be known about that. And so trying to make this journey as easy for you as possible. And I want to just start off by letting you know that this isn't just about a test prep. This is truly professional development that you will receive as you're preparing for this exam. Whether you use me, you use somebody else, or you just learn this material on your own, the content that you are learning is going to make you a better teacher. This is the content that you need to know in order to be a really qualified and knowledgeable literacy teacher, and that's any of us at any grade level. So the FORT right now is currently required in 17 different states. It is new to California, especially. It is required for most elementary and special educators, but there are some changes by state. So you want to make sure that your state requires this exam for you before you spend the time and investment as you prepare. It focuses on the science of reading and structured literacy. So there is a heavy phonics emphasis on this exam. What it does, it's designed to measure your foundational knowledge for effective reading instruction. Your university programs can only prepare you so much. We all know that the practicalities of what you're going to see and face in the classroom are far different. Some universities are better than others at preparing you for this exam. Some of the alternative types of credentialing organizations out there that are not your typical kind of four-year university don't necessarily have a real good hold on how to get this done for you. And so if you're in one of those alternate types of programs, you might look for some additional support, because in my experience, they just haven't done a really good job with that. The new test structure for those of you in California is similar to the RICA. There are some additional content areas that you need to know, but the content in general is a little more streamlined and more targeted. So, and I do have a comparison chart for those of you in California that I can give to you a little bit later so that you can just kind of see what the differences are. So this is also required for any teacher who is a credentialed single subject teacher and wants to move down to the elementary school, the elementary or the K6, K8 area. That means they have to add a multiple subject credential, and in most cases, you'll need to take the Foundations of Reading exam. This is also required for many private school teachers, for our early childhood teachers, our special educators, and teachers that are prepared in other countries. If you are a teacher from another country and you're coming into the United States and need to be credentialed, this is one way that you can pass that as well. Again, it's for a lot of the California teachers. I know many of you are from California here, and it is definitely a new one for you. But interestingly enough, if you were prepared in the Peace Corps, this is also a requirement. I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know many teachers who did that. I actually worked with one time who was prepared in the Peace Corps. So the structure of this exam is, it is a 100 multiple choice questions and 2 constructed responses. You are given 4 hours to take the exam. There will be an added 15 minutes that is kind of an orientation or tutorial in how to use the testing platform that you will be navigating through to take your exam. This is different in the RICA in that it is all taken in one sitting. The RICA was done in subtest and you could break it apart. You cannot do that with this one. It's a 4-hour sit. It's a lot of time, I know. The passing score does vary from state to state. Right now in California, the passing standard is 224. And in most other states, it is 240 as a required passing score. Now, that can vary a little bit. I've only seen it as high as 240. There's a couple in there that are around the 230, 232s. So you want to check your own state's website for those specific parameters. The breakdown of how this is scored is that 80% of your score will come from the multiple choice content. So if you're not a real confident writer, you only need to be concerned that that is 20% of your score. So you can actually do and score really well with this exam if you have a high multiple choice score and a very weak constructed response. The cost of the exam also varies by state, but it's roughly about $139 for each time that you do take this. Now, this exam is broken down into sub areas, and there are 4 main sub areas, although the first 3 are the content. The first sub area is all about the foundations of reading development. This is 35% of your score or of the questions. So 35% of the questions are going to come from that foundations of reading development, which we'll get into the specific sub area competencies in just a moment. The second area is the development of reading comprehension, and this counts for about 27% of the exam. 18% will come from sub area 3, which is all about assessment, reading assessment and instruction. So it's about the design of instruction, the planning of your instruction. And then sub area 4 does not bring in any new content. What it does, though, is it requires you to do or to perform your written response in those first 2 sub areas. So now you will be presented with either a hypothetical situation or some testing data that you will have to analyze and come up with a plan for the kids. So the first one of those constructed responses will cover the foundational reading skills, and the second is all about reading comprehension. Now, both of those are 10% of the score. So this is let's say that you were working through your exam, you only got, you were running short on time and you only finished one of the constructed responses. You didn't even get a chance to attack the second one. Don't panic. If you did really well in everything above, you can still pass the exam. But before we dig into really the specifics of this, I want to give you a little bit of information about how reading develops. And this is an important distinction for you when you're preparing for this exam in any way, shape, or form. One of the biggest mistakes that I see test takers make is they focus their study time on memorizing terminology and taking practice questions, and that's it. Now, I'm not saying those things are not important. They are important. However, what we need to do is have an understanding of how all of these things work together so that you can address the actual needs of a student. And so in order to do that, you have to have a working knowledge of how reading develops. Inside of my course, I go into this in great depth in what I call the nitty-gritty of reading development lesson. It's one of the beginning lessons in the course. But we start with what is called the simple view of reading. The simple view of reading is meant to illustrate some of the basics in how reading develops. And what we know from this is that there are 2 main aspects to learning to read. There is the word recognition side of this formula, which is all about the skills involved in decoding the print. Can I read the print on the page? This involves phonological awareness, phonemic awareness, phonics, and reading fluency, being able to look at print and know what it says. The other component of this formula is the language comprehension side. This is all about the ability to communicate, the understanding of what the words mean, the vocabulary concepts, the syntax, being able to hold an idea. These 2 areas, when we multiply them together, give us the product of reading comprehension. So reading comprehension is an outcome or a product of all of these other skills working together. What unfortunately is another misunderstanding in a lot of with a lot of educators is that reading comprehension is an isolated skill, and it is not. It is not an isolated skill. It is the culmination and the product of all of these other skills working together. Now, can we have gaps here in anything and it will affect our comprehension? Absolutely. Are there some things that we can do to strengthen comprehension even when the majority of this is in place? Absolutely. But because reading comprehension is not an isolated skill, it cannot be taught in one way. It cannot be assessed in one way. And so we start with this first foundational knowledge before we do anything else. The next piece of this goes a little bit further with Scarborough's reading rope. Takes the same concept. We have the word recognition side of that formula. We have the language comprehension side of that formula, and we have the outcome of being a skilled reader that can have text comprehension. But what this illustrates is that each of these isolated skills are woven together. They're all woven together. They become increasingly strategic and increasingly automatic over time and with practice so that we can get to that area where we're looking for skilled readers, right? This is the important piece. Now, understanding this first and foremost is going to make your study time far more applicable and easier for you to then apply it to an actual hypothetical constructed response, okay? The exam questions are not going to be very easy. They are going to be rather multifaceted, and you will have to know how all of the inner workings of this applies, which is why we always start here. Now, with that, we're going to go ahead and look at the sub areas and what's involved here. So sub area 1, which is the foundations of reading development, the focus here is on the phonological and phonemic awareness. So this is early literacy. So if you are an early childhood teacher, this is going to be the area you're probably going to feel most comfortable in. We've got the phonological and phonemic awareness. We learn about the concepts of print, the alphabetic principle, a lot of letter sound correspondence. We learn about phonics, the phonics patterns, how to teach those phonics patterns explicitly and directly. Word analysis, where we get into more of a multisyllabic or a polysyllabic word reading, and then how to break down and decode those words, those unfamiliar words. Something in addition that is not a part of the RICA content for those of you in California is that there is a heavy emphasis on the relationship between oral language and written language inside of the Foundations of Reading test. This is a good thing. This is where the RICA was lacking as far as giving you the tools that you need in the classroom. This is a really important piece of the puzzle that will make it mandatory for you to kind of know that, but I promise it will absolutely help you in your classroom. Sub area 2 focuses on reading comprehension. So here we're learning about vocabulary development. We're learning about morphology, reading comprehension strategies. We get into the specifics of both informational and literary text, so narrative and expository text. We learn about how to develop academic language in our students. We learn about how to support our diverse learners. This is really going to dive into some of our students, particularly, and I would make a note of this, particularly for our English learners or our multi-language learners. You'll have to have a really heavy knowledge here of that. And also your students who might be struggling readers. So we're looking at possible dyslexics, that type of a thing. So this area, though, remember, is going to be a slightly smaller portion of your exam content. The first sub area, if I go back here, is definitely going to be the most for your particular exam. Sub area 3 is going to focus on assessment and instruction. And so this will get into the specifics between formal and informal reading assessments. You will learn how to analyze data so that you can use that data to guide your instruction so that you can teach what kids actually need to know. You'll learn about differentiation and scaffolding. How do we support our struggling students? What can we do to make sure that all of our students are included and can perform to the best of their ability? And then also about some of those specifics supporting our students with reading difficulties. You may see some questions here related to IEPs also. And then sub area 4 is all of those first 3 repackaged into your constructed responses. So again, there's no new content per se. It's how you're presenting your knowledge. So 2 constructed responses. The first one is going to be for you to prepare an organized, developed analysis on a topic related to the development of foundational reading skills. The second one will be to do the same thing, but related to the development of reading comprehension. Each of these is going to be worth 10% of your score. And you will be, there are a number of different ways that this question could be presented to you. You may be asked to analyze student data. So you may be given a set of test scores, running records, oral reading fluency numbers, accuracy numbers, phonics, diagnostics, these types of things. And you would have to look for patterns in the data in order to come up with a teaching approach or plan for that particular student. You may also be given a teaching scenario where it kind of gives you a narrative of what this student is doing, some of the conversation with the student, and then you would again have to make a plan for helping that student to perform to the best of their ability. In all of these, you are required to apply your knowledge of reading instruction and to focus on the practical application. This is what would you do in the classroom. So this is not just about the theory. This is about, I've got a kid, the kid is struggling with X, Y, or Z. What am I going to do with it? And quite honestly, this is what you're going to do in your career. You're going to have these situations all the time where you're going to have a kid who has something going on that you're going to have to play detective and figure out. And that's exactly what these situations are. So both of these constructed responses are a minimum of 150 words and a maximum of 300 words. I always tell my students, you want to lean toward the more of the 300 word. You don't want to get into the minimum. If you're writing with the minimum word count, what that tells me as a reader is that you don't have a lot to say, which means that the knowledge may not be there. So you want to make sure that you're following a pre-plan for what this would look like. And inside of my course, I give you that plan exactly. So this is also about how to make sure that your writing is clear and concise so that you can get all of this across. And this is something that we work on in my course as well. And I'll tell you a little more about that. So when you register for this exam, this is actually offered through the National Evaluation Series. If you are in California, you can access it through the California Teaching Credential website, the CDC website. Any other state, you can do this at your state's teaching credentialing website. And if not, there is a direct link that I will give you also. So you can take this exam year-round. It's offered at testing centers, and also it is available for home online proctoring. Now, that can be really beneficial if you live very far away from a testing center. That does make it nice, but I want to give you a word of caution about the online proctoring. They are very strict about the security measures for the exam when you're home and you're taking this exam. So you want to make sure that if you do this at home, you get your family out for the day if possible. Your dog is somewhere else, because if the dog barks or comes in or gets up, It'll throw you. They could shut your exam down. If your phone rings, I've heard some horror stories from people that got their test shut down because something completely out of their control. So put a note on your doorbell and your door, do not disturb, do everything you can to make sure you have a quiet area. The cost for this exam, again, varies by state. It's roughly $139. And there is a retake policy of 45 days in most states. What this means is if you do not pass the first time you take the exam, you have to wait 45 days from the date of your exam before you can retake it. And the purpose of that is to make sure that when you come in a second time, you're not taking the exact same version of the test. There's 4 or 5 different versions and they cycle throughout the year. So you will be able to pick up a different version of the exam. That's the entire thing. So if you are on any kind of a time crunch, like if your school district or your university is requiring you to pass by a certain time, don't procrastinate, because that 45-day wait period can really impact your timeline if it is not a pass for the first time. There are also alternative testing arrangements that you can make, and this is true for pretty much any kind of a exam like this for teachers. If you have any documented conditions that may require you to need extra time, frequent breaks, those kinds of things, you can apply for these alternative testing arrangements when you register for the exam. It is free to apply. Some of the ones I know have been accepted with my students have been things like attention deficit, anxiety, if English is not your primary language, if you have certain health conditions that would require you to get up, move around, whatever it may be, if you have visual or hearing impairments, any of those types of things. So you can apply for those. And my best advice is if you think you might have something, apply. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't cost. It's just kind of a waiting period to figure out if you get that. And there is a practice test available on the NES website that you can download. They also have one that you can purchase, but there's a free PDF version as well. And again, like I said earlier, but the focus of your studying is not just on learning the terms and taking the practice questions. It's really about the integration of the knowledge and making sure that it makes sense to you. That is the most important thing here. So I want to share with you a little bit about my course and what I do to support educators. Again, I've been doing this for many, many years with a huge success. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of teachers pass their reading competency exams. And so I'm happy to bring this new course in. This course, Fort Prep 101, can be accessed on my website at emilymuccianti.com. This is a full asynchronous course. It's very comprehensive. It covers all 4 sub areas with pre-recorded video lesson and slide deck. It's like a 70-page workbook, study planners, guides, handouts, practice tests that you can take at the end of each of those sub areas. There is also, for those of you that want to become a VIP member, that's a little bit of an additional charge membership. There's additional coaching from me on your constructed responses. When you write, you share them with me via a Google Doc, and I work with you. So that's more for somebody who wants to have a little more of a connection with me to help you with that area. But this is really about being supportive. It makes it very visual. It's a very teacher-friendly approach. If you find that you've been studying with a book out there and you just feel like, gosh, I can't get through this, this is so dry, that's why I did this, because I'm a very visual learner, and that's the way I learn, so that's the way I also teach. There is a mobile app that is included in your course membership. Kajabi is the name of my web host, And there is an app, the actual K in the icon now, though, is black. I believe I just upgraded it, so I need to change this out. But you can actually access your course on any device. So desktop, phone, tablet, whatever you want. If you're at work and you want to grab it from work, it will sync from when you're back on at home. A phone is a great way to review. I don't suggest going through all of the content on your phone the first time because there are slide decks and you're going to want to read, and that just makes it pretty small. But depends on you. My eyes can't do it anymore. You also get unlimited access for your on your schedule for this course during your 1-year membership. So there are 2 1-year memberships. There's also a monthly membership that you can opt to do, and access while your membership is active is unlimited for you. There are some 3 different pricing options for you to consider, and I'll share those with you in just a moment. So this is the home screen of the course, and I just like to share this because it reminds me, these are all of some of my former RICA students. I did bi-monthly or bi-weekly workshops, live workshops on Zoom to go through the content. And I just got to be very close with so many people, met some amazing teachers and educators and friends. And this is just a shout out to them. I always took a picture of our Zoom meetings so that I could see this, and I'll take you into the course and show you what all of this looks like after, if you're interested in seeing that. So there's also a couple of additional things that are on the horizon. First, one of the things, like I said, with my RICA course, we did bi-weekly live workshops, and I loved doing them. We did them on Saturdays. They were about 4 or 5 hours long. I am hoping to do this during this summer with the fort. We just have such a small membership right now. It's not feasible for me to do it yet. The workshops are additional costs. It's for if anyone wants to come in live, they could do that. And that would be, you would see that coming. But so keep an eye out on your email for that as we get closer to summer. But one thing that was on the horizon that's already done is you can actually earn a PD unit from UMass Global when you take my course. 1 unit of professional development credit, and it only costs you $60 to that university. Now, if you're new to teaching and not sure what that means or why that's important, teachers make more money based on how many units you accrue throughout your career. The fastest way to make a bigger salary in education is to collect as many units as you can until you are topped out on your salary schedule. So for $60 to UMass, you can get another unit to help you on that. And that is already available. You just have to complete the course, let me know that it's done and that you want to submit for the unit, and then I will give you the rest of the information there. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that this is professional development. I know that you are required to take this exam, but it does force you to learn about things that are really important in this area. You are an educator. You are a literacy teacher. I don't care what you teach. I don't care what grade level, anything. We all have to be prepared for that. And that's a really heavy burden. So you're not just here to pass a test. You're here to become the kind of teacher that your students are never going to forget. And that's one that's knowledgeable, that's caring, that is supportive, that knows what to do when they struggle. And I used to have a membership for new teachers. And one of the biggest things that we talked about was the turnover rate in education for new teachers. Half of new teachers leave the career within 5 years. Half. That means after all the time, all the money, all the schooling, all of the stress, they decide it's not worth it. And a great deal of that happens because they don't feel prepared. Universities, in some cases, don't do a very good job. You're thrown to the sharks, if you will. And so going through this course and having some mentoring and some coaching can really help you with that. So this is really that professional development that is going to give you the foundation in structured literacy and the science of reading. It's going to talk about real classroom realities, not just theory. It's going to give you instructional practices and strategies that you can take tomorrow into your class. In fact, I have teachers that pass the RICA or pass their exam and stay with the course because of the professional development, all the content they get, and they use it in their classroom. So you're going to walk away with more than just a passing score. You're going to really walk away with the foundation that you need to teach a student to read. So I always like to say, you know, and you all know this, everybody is not, I may not be for everybody. I may not be your person. I hope I am, but if I'm not, that's okay. It is something that I hope that you'll come along with me for. But I do like to share, like, who is my ideal student? My ideal student are those of you that are here because not only do you want to pass the exam, but you want to be a great teacher. You want to be a notable teacher of the year someday. You want to be that one that your students come back to because you made the biggest impact on them. So if you are committed to being that impactful teacher, if you're passionate about literacy, maybe you're even thinking, you know, I might want to be a reading teacher someday or an interventionist someday. This may be perfect for you. If you are coachable and willing to learn, you want to put in the work, then this is going to be a great place for you. So this course was built for the teacher you're becoming, not just the teacher or not just the test you are prepared to take. Now, I would also love for you to Google RICA Prep 101 and go and check out my Google reviews. So I have a 5-star review with over 200 reviews, and you can go in and read what other teachers have said about my courses and my style and hear from them. But the options for the membership options, these are investments in your professional development. There are 2 yearly options. The first one is the standard membership. It's $147. It's a one-time payment. It works out to be about $12 a month. This does not self-renew, so at the end of the year, it will just go away. You get everything that we talked about. The only exception between the standard and the VIP membership, the VIP is a little more. This works out to about $15 a month. This is for the teacher that wants that additional feedback from me regarding their constructed responses. So I read your constructed responses. I work with you more closely to help you with that. And the VIPs are the ones that are able to earn the PD unit from UMass because you have to share your writing with me. There is a monthly plan. It's $47 a month. It's a 3-month commitment. And this gives you everything also that you need, but it's more flexible for those of you that may just need a short-term time on the course. And I always like to welcome you and thank you for your time tonight by offering you a discount. So if you're interested, write down the coupon code FortNewbie316. That's today's date. When you enroll, there's an area for you to put in a coupon code that will reduce your payment so that you can get that added discount. And so if you are interested, once I stop this recording, I'm going to drop a couple of links in the chat for you. Once you enroll, you actually can start immediately. You can take this course, get started, and it's all right there for you. I'm going to show you exactly how to navigate that when I turn the recording off. But I just want to thank you so much for your time today. Please write my email down as well. And if you have any questions, I am happy to address those also. I'm going to go ahead and stop that recording.